Our next presenter has traveled the world, most of the world, almost all of the world, except Antarctica, and not necessarily as a tourist, staying for long periods of time and blending in with the people who live in various places. He has survived hurricanes and earthquakes, and a plane crash, and tumbling down pyramids, and a military coup, and a number of other things. In addition to that, he has witnessed and been an experiencer of some horrendously inhumane activity and survived it. Now living in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, he's been a foster parent of more than 30 children. He's been an advisor as a legal expert to as high as the Supreme Court and to as low as a simple prisoner in the system. So he's seen the fabric of humanity, and his talk is on how peace is a verb. And to support that notion, I will say that peace is not a state of inactivity when you sit and meditate. That's legitimate, but it's not limited to inactivity or being still. Peace is a verb. Michael?
Actually, I'm going to correct that just a little bit, Gary. Peace is an action verb, all right? You know, that's the title of my talk. And I have to admit that yesterday, as I had it all prepared and ready to be printed out so I would have all my notes in order, this morning when I got up, my computer had shut down by itself and eliminated all of my work. So I had to scramble this morning and reassemble some of it. So it may be a little disjointed, and I apologize. You know, in the world today, we're looking at a lot of turmoil. And it's turmoil within nations, between nations, within corporations, within economies, within individuals, between families. And we have to wonder, where is all this turmoil coming from? And I believe one of the elements of it is a misinterpretation of something that His Holiness the Christ said 2,000 years ago. He said, "Think not that I come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother." And that's from the book of Matthew. From the book of Luke, he says, "Suppose ye that I came to earth to give peace on earth? I tell you nay, but rather division. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in a house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father. The mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother." And that's from the book of John. But then if you go to the 4th gospel of Luke, he gives a promise. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." 100 years ago, at the end of World War II and the beginning of what was to become the League of Nations, there was an essayist by the name of Mary Calkins. She was out in Massachusetts, and she summed up everything that said, you know, the world right now needs peace, but nobody believes it can be here because we're all fighting. And that's the state of humanity. It's been the state of humanity for thousands of years. It's the state of humanity that Christ understood. It's the state of humanity. We will never move towards peace because we are built for violence. But she didn't believe so. And she didn't believe that we as human beings were forced to remain in a state of chaos and violence. But as Dr. Cools mentioned at the beginning of this program, peace is not the absence of war, okay? War itself is a fomentation of peoples moving across the face of the earth, of ideas clashing together in many ways, whether it be the communist philosophy versus the capitalist philosophy versus the socialist philosophy or a pacifist philosophy. War doesn't necessarily have to be with arms and armaments. War can be a war of words and a war of ideas. So war itself is not an absence of peace, just as peace is not an absence of war. In 1963, Martin Luther King wrote a letter when he was incarcerated in the Birmingham jail. And I'm going to modify this quote just a little bit because I don't want to make it about the issues of, black-white issues that we're seeing today with white privilege and such. Although that plays into it, there is a broader theme that is an underlying context here. And he says that there is a greater danger in the moderate who is devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace with its absence of tension to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. I want you to think about that. He equated peace with justice, and that is a theme throughout all of the Baha'i writings. Baha'u'llah talks about it, Abdu'l-Baha talks about it, the successor leaders of the faith talk about justice being an underpinning foundation for peace. One of the groups that I work with on peace ventures a lot is the Quakers. And I want to give you an idea of where they're coming from with this concept of peace. Because most people think of Quakers as pacifists. And that's not quite true. I mean, there are some, and there are pacifists in other faiths as well. But they've identified, 5 developmental steps towards a person's growing ability to manifest peace in the world. And by manifest peace, I mean foment it, to build it, to be actively involved in the creation and sustaining of peace. The first level is acquiescence. We see what's going on, we do nothing. There's injustice over here, there's violence there, there's corruption over there, but we acquiesce to what's happening and we do nothing. The next level is pacifism. Pacifism says, I recognize what's going on, but I'm not going to be involved in fixing the problem. I'm going to sit back and just let somebody else do it. Because that's ultimately what pacifism is. They want everything to be placid and pacific. They are discomforted by violence or oppression, true, but they're also discomforted by standing up and engaging in the struggle. The next level up is passive, nonviolent resistance. That's where we recognize what's going on. We recognize that within ourselves we are reacting to that, and we recognize the injustice or the corruption or the violence. And we try to do something about it, but more it's a witness. Okay, I'm telling you that this is bad. I'm willing to stand up in front of the crowd and say, this is bad, but I'm over here looking at it. Okay? And the fourth rung of that ladder towards creating peace is active nonviolent resistance, where I'm going to start doing something. I might stand on the sidelines and yell, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, but I'm not on the front line. I'm still not projecting myself and taking a responsibility to alter the situation. I've gone from acquiescence and then passively accepting what's going on, even though I recognize it's bad, to saying, yes, it's bad, to now actively going, no, we should be not doing this. I'll write a letter to the president. I'll write a letter to the editor. But I'm still on the sidelines.